Hey, welcome back. So, I would like to kind of talk about some specialized habitats that occur on land. At this point here, I'm not going to go into the population dynamics, so we'll just kind of pick that up at another time. But anyway, and I think what I want to do with this is actually make this an Edpuzzle assignment. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing I want you to know is that invading plants is pretty cool. It's a more stable environment, so you don't like freeze instantly or dehydrate instantly. And so air and humidity, moisture content and everything like that is more stable. Almost like a homeostasis kind of thing. And then the other thing is living inside of a plant, you can reduce competition with other species, either for food or for shelter or whatever. So there are different insects that will drill into plants, and within these three orders up here, Coleoptera, of course, is the beetles, Diptera or Diptera. Those are your true flies with only the two wings. And Lepidoptera, of course, is your butterflies and moths. And if you're drilling into solid wood, you don't want to have dangly bits on your body that are going to slow you down or get snagged or get ripped off or whatever. And so these larvae are going to wind up legless or have reduced legs. Their eyes are going to be small. No need for antennae. Especially on larvae, on many larvae. And so you really want to try to stay streamlined. I know that's a hideous beetle larva in that picture right there. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that their jaws, since they're drilling as they're working through the wood going forward, their jaws are facing forward. They're at the front end. So prognathes jaws are facing forward. Being well sclerotized means that they're thick and really rigid and crunchy and can tear through some wood. Lightly sclerotized would be having like soft jaws and all that stuff. And then finally on this one, comparing prognathes with hypognathes. Hypognathes, it means below. Hypo meaning below. Gnath, G-N-A-T-H, means jaw. So that would be mouth parts that face the ground. But if you're drilling forward through wood, then you need prognathes jaws. By the way, that hideous larva on the previous slide turns into this kind of beetle. It's a metallic wood-boring beetle, and pretty cool stuff. Okay, so moving along here, there are some adult stages of insects that drill into wood and things like that as well. And so Hymenoptera is the order that includes ants, bees, and wasps. And they are excellent at drilling into things. And then now in your book, Isoptera or Isoptera, it means equal wings. That's the order that includes termites. However, about 2 years ago, termites actually got lumped into the order that is known as cockroaches. So technically, based on DNA and other shared gut bacteria and all kinds of stuff like that, termites are actually social cockroaches. And so anyway, these go ahead and drill into wood. I'm sure the workers and some of the younger ones, termites are hemimetabolists. They don't have a pupa, but so they probably have other age groups that are still drilling in to wood and into soil as well to keep their colony going. So the textbook covers a little bit on diets, actually. And so I wanted to distinguish between two types of diets here. And phage means to eat. And so mono, you may be familiar with, that means one. And so if something is monophagous, that means they are only stuck on eating one species of organism, one species of plant, and that's it. They're just like, nope, I only eat mac and cheese. Everything else, forget it. Stuff like that. Oligophagous diets are those that where the eater, the consumer, is branching out and eating different species of organisms. Could be different species of plants, or maybe they're omnivores or whatever. So that's what that's all about. Okay, I just wanted to show you a couple of little chunks of wood that a fellow teacher gave me a couple years ago, and I can kind of see in there. Yeah, these holes right here are drilled into a tree that had died, and those holes were drilled by carpenter bees. And it's a pretty large bee that's drilling in there, but they will drill in, lay their cute little eggs in there, have some little carpenter bee babies, and that is what's happening there. All right, and as we move on through the chapter here, turn a page or two, we're going to go ahead and I'd like to discuss what galls are. You've seen some video of this in a couple of things in our class so far this semester, but galls are essentially they're a cancerous growth on plants. They don't seem to harm plants like cancer, affects other organisms or whatever, including humans. So I guess they would be sort of benign and not as worrisome. But there are some insects that will actually inject some proteins that start cancerous growth. And you'll see these little spheres or balls or weird things growing on a plant. And what's interesting with that is that the galls actually grow around a larva, and so there's an insect inside these, or sometimes several insects inside these. We have galls on campus in the oak trees. Around campus you'll see these little almost tennis ball looking things, or things about the size of a tangerine, stuck on oak trees. And at the end of the year, after they've all hatched, you'll see these little holes in there where little tiny wasps have drilled out. Those galls are extremely protective to the developing larva inside, and it's a stable habitat that prevents dehydration. Predators cannot gnaw their way into it. I mean, galls are extremely solid, and it takes a bandsaw or a hacksaw to get into them. And there are many species of insects, over 2,000 species of insects, that actually wind up producing galls. Sometimes you can identify the insect based on the shape and size and color of the gall that it makes. So these are very successful protective cancerous growth that these insects are inducing on the plants to make sure their cute little babies grow up nice and strong. So these insects are kind of a trip, and you may or may not have seen them. I spent, I don't know, many times as a kid playing around with these and finding the bug on the inside, and they're called spittle bugs. And it looks like somebody cleared their throat and hocked a gross loogie on some plants, but they're kind of uniform bubbles. And what's a trip with these bubbles is that this liquid, this sort of bubbly kind of liquid, is excreted from their anus, and then they use that to blow bubbles from their tracheae, and so this comes like out of their spiracles. It's almost like when you were a little kid and you were blowing bubbles through a soap solution, and yay bubbles and everything else. Those bubbles are pretty hardy for spittle bugs, and they will then stay buried under this frothy foam of white bubbles. And the trippy thing with that is that predators usually rely on movement of their prey, and to decide, hey, I got to go ahead and eat that. So if there aren't any prey movements, you're just going to walk right past it. So praying mantises will walk straight past these things. Other predatory insects are like, nothing around here to eat. That's a terrible thing. The other thing I want to show you in this picture on the right, if you go straight down, this is sort of a weird pointy arrow-shaped insect, very common for Homoptera, but follow all the way down and you're going to see a beak coming out of that. These insects specialize on stabbing their mouth parts into plants, drinking all that sugar water we know as syrup, for example. And so these are pretty nasty for plants. They function like these insects function like a parasite on them. Well, while you're collecting, assuming that we'll be able to collect someday after this pandemic and everything, or if you're just exploring around in trees and whatever, and you see some leaves that are rolled over like this, you will find a larval insect in there. Lepidoptera, again, is your butterflies and moths, and some of those are really, really good at just pulling the leaf over onto themselves to protect them from predators and give them a little bit more of a stable habitat rather than being out there in the wind and in the cold and in the rain. They make their own little tent or sleeping bag or whatever and stay inside. Considering predators looking for prey movements, it'll be really easy to just walk right past a rolled up leaf and not even know that there's food inside. All right, so in addition to burrowing into plants, rolling up leaves and making galls and things like that, there are other insects who burrow into the soil. And I wanted to focus on a couple of these here. Dung beetles, these are scarab beetles that collect animal poop and they bring that underground, and that's a food source for their young. Also, there are solitary wasps. These are wasps that don't live in big nests and big social, groups and family groups and all that stuff. But within these wasps, there are some solitary ones that will drill underground, and they're ground nesters. Sometimes they will have, they'll drag their prey underground and lay an egg on a spider, for example. The spider's paralyzed, and then the wasp larva starts eating that spider while it's developing, and then what flies out of the tunnel is a brand new wasp. And then there are cicadas, which are really, really known for drilling into the soil and burrowing there. And what they do is once those eggs are laid in trees, the eggs fall to the ground, and when these little tiny cicadas hatch, they drill all the way down into the ground and attach themselves to the roots of trees. They are protected from predators who are running around on the surface of the ground way above their heads, on top of the dirt. Meanwhile, these cicadas are down underground, and they have stabbed their beaks. This is another group in that order called Homoptera. And they've stabbed their beaks into the roots of the trees. The trees circulate their sugars and their waters and everything, so it's like just parking right next to a food supply. And many of these spend many years underground, and then when they're ready to hatch and come on out as adults, and I don't mean hatch like they're hatching out of eggs at this point, they're emerging as adults so that they can go mate. When they do that, they'll crawl out of the soil. They are really noisy, and I'll also get you a link to some video along with this one. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that some insects actually drill into soil. And in this slide, I just wanted to kind of summarize how cicadas work, laying their eggs in trees, and those little young, the eggs fall to the ground, the young hatch out and drill down into the ground, stab their mouth into some roots of some trees, and spend several years just drinking sugar water from the trees. I'm sure they get proteins and stuff like that too. And then when they're ready to come out as adults and have some cute little babies and all that good stuff, they drill out of the ground, come up and emerge, crack out of their hard candy shell, and start making some noise and attract some potential mates. And just to wrap this up on the final slide here, you'll see a couple of different stages. In the very bottom picture here, you'll see a nymph that has some underdeveloped wings, but it's ready to become an adult. And then if you go up to the top right photograph, there is an exoskeleton of a nymph and an adult that is emerging from there. And those wings will be filled up. And then finally, when you get to the top left slide, or photograph, the largest photo in this slide, then you'll see an empty exoskeleton in the bottom right, but then 3 fully grown adults. They will then spend some time trying to find a mate. And after they mate, the females will lay the eggs on the trees that fall to the ground and keep that whole cycle of life going for cicadas. So that pretty much wraps it up for this lesson. So hope you enjoyed it.